Little. Okay, so this is the second episode of Alex Talking to People. The episode where I talk to interesting people that are often my friends and or people YouTubers that I liked, as in case of the Vanguard, as the interview last time. But yeah, so this is a woman who's a Lori Fontanes, who is a woman that I actually helped elect to the Rye City Council.
Sure did.
Yeah, which so
Key volunteer, Alex Kahn, key volunteer.
Yeah, I was a big volunteer to the Lori Fontanes campaign. So
I think officially there's official title, right? Like Friends of Lori for Rye or something. I forget. I should remember that.
No, like there's it all out. Where we would be like it would be like just me and you canvassing. So like that's like So
yeah, but Alex, that's the heart and soul, especially of all politics, but local politics.
Yeah, specifically, yeah. So just tell us a little bit more about yourself. Yeah.
Oh man, where do I start? I've had such a life. I am so incredibly blessed. I grew up in Philadelphia from a working class background, and I have been all over the world. I've done some really interesting things, I think. And I started out, I've always been a writer, always been a storyteller in different media. I decided I wanted to go to Hollywood like folks do. And I went out to California for a while. My first film was at the Sundance Film Festival. I went through that whole thing, got involved the digital revolution when things got really crazy, and realized, I'm going to move on, and moved back to the East Coast in 2009 and to the beautiful city of Rye, and have been there since, and have done all kinds of interesting things with wonderful, wonderful folks here. We're all volunteers, right, Alex? I mean,
yeah,
the whole city runs on volunteers. Nobody gets paid. We do this out of a love of public service, and to give back, and also to educate all the newcomers, because there's always a constant influx of folks coming from other states and from the city. And yes, so most recently, I decided to throw my hat in the ring when a couple of my environmental friends asked me to, and here we are.
Yeah, here we are. So you're the incoming Rye City Council member. You beat Republican Matt Fahey, which that was a tough election. It was relatively close. But yeah,
right. 51 to 49 seems to be the spread though, right now, right across the country.
Yeah, so for pretty much like everything. Yeah, and we were again living in an age. So like, what would you say? Like, why did you decide, after you've had such an illustrious career, you decided to be like, oh, I want to be in the city council?
Well, illustrious is a strong word, but I appreciate your saying that. No, I mean, I think again, it seemed like the natural next step. It wasn't revolutionary in any way, because that's how things work in Rye.
Yeah.
But you know what? Can I just tweak? I see the weird light on my is that bothering you?
No, it's not bothering me. You're
okay. Okay. Because I can do this.
Okay, cool.
Better. Sorry. See, that's the filmmaker in me. I can't. Yeah. I see some weird thing. Yeah, it was just the way the blinds were.
Yeah.
So anyway, let me get back to the story. So again, there's the organizational chart of the city of Rye. It looks like this. It's in the budget every year. And at the very tippy top are the citizens, right? Not the mayor, not the city council, not the city manager. It is a city manager or city council form of government.
Yeah.
And the city manager side, those folks get paid, right? Those are people who are experts in their fields, and everything flows from there. But on the other side, the mayor and the city council, and the mayor is a member of the city council, right? Unlike some places in Westchester, the mayor is one vote, but they get to do certain extra things. And, the whole job is to do what the citizens want. The other part of that, though, is figuring out what they want. And in order for that to happen, they need to know what's going on. And as a communications professional, that part interested me because I feel, and I feel this is still the case, that we could improve some of that dialogue. And I thought that that's what I could offer in addition to my other professional expertise and my work in the environmental community and all of that stuff, that finding a way to get people excited about public service, to get people to, who didn't want to actually serve, but deserve to know what is going on, to improve that dialogue. And that's something I thought that I could bring to
I
City
think
Hall.
that's a great answer. So what is like in terms of like what your plans are specifically for your coming term in 2023?
Well, I think that a lot of us look at this as sort of a building year. So the Democrats actually endorsed me, and I've learned through the process. I mean, let me backtrack slightly to say I wasn't a part of the political process here in any way, right? I mean, all the work that I did was because I was working on different projects, and I have no clue how it worked. I was I was a lifelong Democrat. And then when we moved here, I wanted to get back into journalism, which is something else I do. And norm had become over the years that, being an independent, especially if you were doing any kind of investigative journalism, which I had started to do again, to be neutral. Right. And so I was like, okay, fine. So I was an unaffiliated voter for several years and really not involved with politics. I didn't know any of the players. And then Donald Trump was elected. And I think we all know that was like a major shock to the body politic, as it were. And suddenly I thought, okay, I need to, now my child is getting older. They're heading off to college. I need to you start to think about legacy, and you start to think about the future for your children. And so politics was a natural way to contribute on that level. So then I had to investigate, okay, how does this work? So I started asking some friends, and they were like, okay, this is the way it is. There's just X number of people. There's a relative handful of people who get to choose who will be on the ballot by endorsing these candidates. So, but I didn't know any of that. In 2020, I had very little understanding of the process. And so it's been a very interesting 2 years to learn how local politics works, and specifically Rye politics and New York politics, which is quite different from other places I've lived.
Yeah, and Rye is an interesting town because like I think we all like vote blue. Like there is a very much it's very democratic in terms of like I think most people would identify as Democrats in the city of Rye.
Well, if you want to look at it in terms of registration, because I did this research too early on, because I investigative journalism, any journalism, you need data. Yeah. And so if you look at the breakdown of voters, it's roughly a third. Democrats right now have, in terms of registrations, have slightly more than the Republicans. And then there's a whole other, and this was the interesting piece, Alex, and I think you and I talked about this as we were knocking on doors.
Yeah.
When you have such a divided country and a divided electorate, the difference is made up in the unaffiliated and everyone else, right? There's some Green Party, there are a couple of, not all these parties are on the New York ballot system, right? As a lot of them were dropped off, they changed the rules. Again, I'm learning still how this works, but a third is huge, right? There's a lot of people that don't identify with either party. So if you can reach those folks, that could be the difference in a tight race, any tight race.
And that's actually very good political strategizing, if that's the word.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's really interesting, especially the fact that like, and you did have some rifts in your own in our own party of the Rye City Democrats. Meg Cameron refused to endorse you and endorsed the Republican Matt Fahey. So yeah,
it's ancient history. Look, folks can choose whoever they want. That's the beauty of this country. Yeah. And I think that everyone says this. This is almost like the obligatory thing to say, but it's actually true, is that local politics is not partisan, right? It's one of the quirks of New York is that it is more partisan. Like, for example, when I was living in California, the elections process was run in a nonpartisan way. And in New York, according to the New York Times article that I dug up, is the only state in the union that has this system. So you end up, I think it's the highest percentage of votes goes to, the parties are selected that way, but it's almost always Republican and Democrat. So you end up with a Democratic commissioner and a Republican commissioner. And so the Board of Elections, that's how it works. And not every state does that, right? So, but in spite of that, certainly on a local level, right? They just say, garbage pickup is not a partisan issue.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm garbling the quote there, but right. So really, in the end, what I've learned is it's about individuals. And they say that all the time too. The candidates matter, but it really matters in a situation like this, when it's really just about, who are the people running and what have they done? What do they say they're going to do? How do they communicate? Right? Do you like them? Right? Because politics is very much about likability. Do you believe in them? Do you have faith in them? Right? Do you recognize that their experience is relevant?
Yeah.
A whole bunch of questions like that can make the difference, because there are people who will just vote in party line.
And there, and of course that there is definitely I think, and in terms of, because I have conversations about city councils being politically nonpartisan for with a couple of people in an ideal world, would that be something you would be interested in?
Meaning,
do you think that that's the better way to go than what we have here?
No, at the end of the day, I think conflict and collision of ideas produces better outcomes. I don't think the party system is a terrible system, but I think that there are ways to tweak it, right? For example, there are other states who are using, what is this? I'm blanking, I'm a little jet lagged. What's the system, Alex? Where, well, first of all, you can have an open primary, right? Which would be different. And I participated in that briefly in California, right? They had an open primary. So that changes the outcome of your candidates, right? If they don't have to be so partisan.
And then jungle primaries right there, right? Where it's it's not even partisan, where it's just you could have two Democrats on the ballot based on the primary.
Well, the ranked choice, right? Look at what ranked choice voting did in Alaska.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, and so people don't like to give up benefits, right? And they don't like to give up power.
Yeah.
There's probably other things they don't like to give up. Air and water, right?
I'm very much in favor of both the California system in terms of primary or jungle primaries. I'm also very much in favor of ranked choice. I think ranked choice is the easiest.
Yeah, I think it's producing wonderful results.
Exactly.
But I mean, there are people who would probably fight on the other side of that argument, because again, it's about power. The fact that we have these two powerful parties, they like that. Right. In a way. But the problem is the primary, in my opinion, not the general. Right. Yeah. If by the time you get to the general, you have the choices that are not really the choices you would like to have.
Exactly.
And I think that's the consistent outcome that we're seeing. And then you have, of course, the Trumpism factor.
Yeah.
Has thrown another monkey wrench sort of into this well-oiled machine that went on for decades, where people didn't see a difference between the Republican and the Democratic choices on a national level, right? So, but out of chaos is opportunity, no?
Yeah, and I think open primaries are really good, and I think that it prevents people from being overtly partisan. Although I wouldn't say too left, because I do think some pretty left-wing ideas are pretty good. But yeah, I remember when. Because we met when I was working for Catherine Parker, when I was interning for Catherine Parker. And
that's right. Yeah. That's right. Yes.
And that's how we kind of started. That's how I met you when we were doing the canvassing.
When it was 100 degrees out and 95%.
Josh is actually my next guest, by the way.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, no, Josh is the one who introduced us.
Yeah, Josh is the one who introduced us. So yeah, that's upcoming.
I can't wait. I
Yeah,
want to see it.
that's like the upcoming race. And so in terms of like one of the things that I remember being the one of my the reason I want to do this podcast and the reason I selected you as my second podcast, like out after my first, was because we had such great conversations canvassing.
We did.
That
We
was
did.
like half the fun of canvassing was we would have these really great conversations about
Yes.
politics generally. And the like probably the last like 10 days, no, probably 15 days of the campaign, there were two words that we were terrified of, which was Lee Zeldin.
Oh God.
We were
Oh, that's
so
right. Oh, that's what, right. When things shifted, right?
yeah,
When the poll started to tighten.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, I know, because when we started out, he wasn't on the radar
He
really.
wasn't on. No, I mean like yeah.
In August, that was in August, right? When we started working together. I met you in August, but and then we didn't
I
start
started working with you in September.
in September, but I met you in August.
Yeah.
In August, Lee Zeldin was not really,
Not even like a
he
thing. Like
wasn't a factor. Right. Exactly. Right.
and
Right.
especially with like Lee Zeldin and like and his like I think like to back to like that man could have won, and I get scared by that
Yes.
possibility. And he is a like in terms of like crime, which I think is like something that is definitely on the minds, I think, of a lot of voters.
Absolutely. It is.
It's like I think like number two. I think that there's like a kind of a happy medium, because like they're like obviously I think that policies like cashless bail are incredibly flawed, but I think that we can't throw out all of criminal justice reform because of that.
Yeah. This is not an area of expertise for me. I will warn you. The whole history of how that all went down. But I will say that there has to be, I agree with you that there has to be a happy medium.
There has to be a happy medium. And it's
Yeah.
not, to be honest with you, like it's not me. Like for instance, like I remember people like on Twitter were conflating the legalization of marijuana, which that's an issue I care a lot about, to cashless bail, which they're completely different things, but for some reason, just because like one is a crime, it's just like it's conflated.
Right. Well, let's drill down a little deeper into what, because I think it's related into the sudden shift with Lee Zeldin, right, in his campaign.
Yeah.
This is a symptom, and it's a very effective strategy of fear mongering, right? And the one thing that I look, I was a filmmaker, a producer for many years. I'm used to the kind of craziness that happens when you're close to showtime, when you're close to like you're working on it, people are exhausted, and it's funny because similarly, during a campaign, something also happens when the stakes get increasingly higher. People, even your allies, everyone's feeling it. Yeah. And so you can, people who've, again, done this far longer than I have, know that it's that you can tap into that, right? You can tap into that anxiety, you can tap into that thing, and that fear mongering, regardless of the subject, is a very effective tool.
Yeah, exactly.
To at least open the door, even if you think it was a closed door. Many people thought that door was closed, right? There was a lot of people when the abortion decision was handed down.
They thought that was like,
they thought it was, done and dusted. But again, cooler heads understood that by November, things could be quite different. And in fact, they were.
Yeah.
Not ultimately enough different.
For good.
Right. But enough that, yes, people forget there's such a constant onslaught of information. And right now, anxiety, we're still living in, the dregs of the pandemic, hopefully, I don't know, right? Like anything could happen with the Ukraine situation, inflation, which is, thankfully coming down, but all of these stressors contribute to this. And so people who don't care necessarily, who just want to win, will work that fear, work that anxiety, right? And so don't I think the thing not to is to look for any kind of sense, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense.
Yeah,
It's just supposed to make people anxious.
make people anxious and make people make people fearful and make people think that like the way Lee Zeldin was talking about crime in New York, I was like, is this like, are we going back to like taxi driver era New York? Is that the New York he's describing? Like
Apparently,
that's what like I was like,
yeah,
um,
yes,
yeah.
but it is a real fear.
I mean,
And
it is
for
like,
anyone
it is
who's
a problem. It is
right.
a problem. Like it
Yep.
is a problem that needs to be solved. It's just,
Yep.
it's just the way you solve it is a really important factor.
Devil is in the details,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So you can raise these questions. Oh,
Yeah.
and by the way, that's another strategy that people like that you like to use if you're wanting to produce fear, you're
Yeah.
wanting to produce anxiety, and at the same time coupling that with, oh, well, my candidate cares, right, about these things.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily offering solutions, right? The GOP was excellent at this in the, here they are again. We're going to have more investigations. Well, okay.
Yeah.
I don't care about investigations. I care about putting, food on the table at a reasonable price. I care about the future of the planet, right? What are you doing about climate change? Mm-hmm. And, in adaptation and mitigation and resilience, right? I don't care about Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
Right? He's like way, way down on the list of things that I care about.
I think. Yeah. That's
right?
A lot of voters, I believe.
I think so. I really do think so. But again, when you're working on the margins, it's just enough. This question thing, right? A lot of people use this strategy. They ask a question. Donald Trump does this. Yeah. This is one of his rhetorical devices. Yeah. Ask a question. Don't answer the question, but just ask that question and raise that level of stress, raise that level of anxiety. And if you're in an anxious state, you're not actually worried about whether it makes any sense. Yeah. You're just worried.
You're just worried, and you look at also the election results. I remember you were talking about how you were going to write an article about after the election about the big lie, which is one of the most dangerous things on the planet. I'm currently on vacation in Arizona, and I'm like, I remember I remember going to Arizona. I was like, I am so worried that I'm going to see some MAGA militants, because
in Arizona, it's
yeah.
Alex, I have a question for you about Arizona, if you don't mind, because I haven't been there in a couple of years, but I was there a lot. Yeah. Does it feel more purple though?
It feels more purple. Like, for instance, there's a lot of there are a lot of conservatives, specifically on the street I live in. And from what I hear, they all hated Kari Lake. They all
really.
They all hated Kari Lake because she thought they all think Trump is crazy. And I think a lot of conservatives think Trump is crazy. And I think and you look at Arizona especially, and and a lot of people would just put it up to Hispanic voters, but I think it's just the fact that Arizona voters are way more. You look at say our senators that we've had, you look at Republican senators like Jeff Flake, for instance.
Yes.
Someone like John McCain, for instance, but even if you go back to Barry Goldwater, people talk about Barry Goldwater as if he's a far right. And in many ways, Barry Goldwater was very, very far right.
Yeah, especially for the time, right?
Especially for the time. But the man also was talking about gay rights in the 1980s.
I know. See, it's so funny, right?
And was campaigning for medical marijuana in 2004. Arizona has a history of kind of liking maverick people that are a little on the margins of each side. And I
think it's a Western thing too, right? Don't get that frontierism that you're not going to put me in a box.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of a thing. Okay, so sorry.
Arizona has is in a unique position. They have, I was going to say 2 Democratic senators, but one just freaking left with Sinema.
Yeah.
after party. Like cinema is like one of those like independents where like I'm like, oh, okay, cool. You literally are just pulling a Joe Lieberman where you're just gonna run as an independent so you don't get fucking primary.
That's a good
Yeah,
comparison.
yeah,
Yeah.
because where yeah, so I that's what I think at least. And
Well, let me interject to say that, first of all, I own that book by Jeff Flake. And I voted for Senator McCain in that open primary when I
yeah,
lived in California. I am open-minded enough, right, to at least say, okay, if there's a moderate or different opinion here, so that is in my history, full disclosure.
yeah,
As far as with I can't speak to the makeup of the Arizonan electorate in the same way, but I do remember the many times that I've been, and I know people who, there are people in Rye
yeah,
who were born and raised in Arizona.
yeah,
And the reason this is relevant is that these swing states, I mean, are more swing than ever, right?
yeah.
More than swing. I think swing is not a strong enough word.
Mhm.
They're pivotal, right, to the future of this country now,
Yeah,
right? The focus on Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia. Am I forgetting any other? Michigan, right? It's huge. So I think it's Bill Maher who's complained over and over again. Well, people just used to read the news, and now they're all into politics, as if that was the problem. We're into politics for survival, right? Yeah. We understand the stakes. We, in fact, need to pay attention. That said, real information, right? Not Facebook information.
Or Twitter information.
Well, Twitter, don't you want to talk about you want to,
yeah.
If you want to talk about social media.
Okay, cool. So I got this meeting will end in 10 minutes.
10 minutes. I saw that right now. I've got it.
So I want to conclude with just some like Hollywood stories. My favorite story that you ever told me.
No.
Was when you met Matt and Trey from South Park.
Oh my God.
Trey experience.
Which one? The car driving down from Bel Air?
Tell both because they're both funny.
Okay. God. Okay. I'll tell you the less funny one first. So I was asked by, Matt, this is my understanding, you're really going back really far. So no, I think it was Scott. There was this little, the digital revolution happened. Everybody was trying to figure out what it's going to do. And in fact, there was no real platform for digital yet because the speeds weren't fast enough, but that didn't mean you had to tee it up. You should tee it up. So I was up at Sundance and they're like, this guy says, oh, you really should meet this company. I can't even remember their name now, but he sat on the advisory board or what. He had some relationship with this company. So the long and short of it is that they're like, hey, do you want to show up at the Chateau Marmont for and be on our panel? It was like some digital filmmaking panel, and those guys were there, and I think Scott, I want to say the Napster guy was there. It was like a really interesting mix of folks. So it was called the Yahoo Internet Life Festival. They only did one, as far as I know, and I was one of the speakers on that. So that was one time I met them. But the other funnier time was we were doing. I was living near the 405 in the west part of LA, and I came from Sundance. I came from the art world, and I didn't know what to make of this digital thing. And I was like really like sort of trepidatious, like I didn't want to do anything wrong, and I was like real like a girl. I was trying to do something like really, didn't make any mistakes. And I had this satirical piece about Sundance, and I didn't know whether I should actually, continue working on this project. Yeah. And I'm driving up on the road that runs along the 405, Sepulveda Boulevard. Yeah. And I'm having this mental conversation in my head, and out of the hills, it's Matt in this like hugely expensive Mercedes, a white car. I was like, and I was like, oh my God, he's living the life and stuff like. It's like, what the hell am I thinking? Right? Just go for it, Lori. You should just do this. Don't worry. Yeah. So I was like, and it totally like it was just like, oh, great, yeah, that's how you do it. You got to just for the gusto.
Yeah,
So yeah, so those are my two encounters
those are
with
your
the South
two
Park guys.
really funny encounters. So yeah, thank you so much for being on my podcast. It,
Oh, thank you for having me.
it,
It was
it
such a
was
pleasure to work with you.
it was so fun. I hope I get to work on your next campaign.
I,
Uh,
you're top of the list.
oh,
Top
thank
of
you,
the
thank you,
list.
thank you. So yeah, thank you so much. I'll probably have this up in like less than a day or tomorrow or whatever. But yeah,
Yes, send me the links
thank you so much for being on this stream.
anytime.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye bye.
bye.
Bye bye.